I'm Jeremy Jones. I live in Somerset, Kentucky. It's a small community, but is rapidly growing due to us going wet last year. Tons of bars and clubs are coming to the community, and some have already made their way here. With that being said, the legal system seems to have changed a lot since we went wet. Our jailer has been prosecuted for harassment to the inmates, but is still in his position, and people continue to vote for him. Holy crap! Why do you live surrounded by so many stupid people? It's a real critical mass. Prosecuted for harassing inmates, but we want that to happen. I mean, do you understand what the message, the mentality of the community is? First of all, where you had a formerly dry county, I assume it was at the county level, like you say community, but you're living in a place where prohibition is taken to the next level, like it's still 100 years ago. But on top of that, the community is saying, well, we have so much faith in our government that it only puts people away when they're really bad criminals, that when you go to jail, we want you to be harassed by the jailer. Yeah. Wow. So, Jeremy, I'm encouraged by your email and your insight, but there are better places to live, you know. Our cops are slowly turning against our citizens. I've been a victim recently. I went out with a friend of mine who happens to be a girl. We were pulled over for having a headlight out. He gave us a warning. Then we went on about our way. About an hour later after I got home, not one, not two, not three, but 4 police officers started shining lights in my living room windows and beating on my door. Whoa. I answered and they asked me to step outside. I asked what was the problem. And they quickly, without hesitation, replied, "We're hoping that you can tell us that." I stated, "I have no problems, officer." They said, "Well, we have one with you. We were on Sycamore Street at any, were you on Sycamore Street at any point tonight?" I said, "No." They proceeded to tell me that there had been a call-in about someone who matched my description that had been on Sycamore Street poking around their house and eventually went inside their home and had stolen a pair of shoes and their wallet. I obviously wasn't their guy. I just got home from hanging out with a friend of mine. Turns out the police officer that pulled us over earlier in the night was an officer that responded to the call about someone poking around someone's house on Sycamore Street and eventually barging in and stealing their wallet and their shoes. Little did I know, the officer that pulled us over was the lieutenant, and he had his officers report to my house to basically terrorize me for no reason. Now, terrible story. Don't get me wrong, Jeremy. This is always scary when violent thugs with no accountability show up to your home, and are like not even politely approaching, properly, respectfully knocking on the door or calling. They're shining lights in your living room window. I mean, that's just freaking creepy. But it's not no reason. I'm sure there was some. I mean, nothing happens without a reason. So was the reason petty harassment? Was the reason, that they wanted to make themselves feel important? They wanted to, give themselves something to do. And this is part of the problem with the incentive system around law enforcement in America, is that there's no incentive for solving crimes. In fact, the incentive is to not solve crimes. The incentive is to allow criminals to run around, to make more crime, to give them an excuse to spend more money. So this is inherent to the nature of the police state, that when they have the chance to actually go track down real criminals, instead they would rather make work. They'd rather look busy. They'd rather just go and harass someone for no good reason. I got a text from the girl that I was hanging out with. The place that got robbed on Sycamore Street was her mom's house. Isn't it kind of weird how they pinpointed me an hour later after pulling me over? I was told by the girl that the officer told her mom to basically lie and say that it was me so they could place me under arrest with a reasonable suspicion. How messed up is that? It's just as messed up as the fact that we live under a violent gang of thugs in this country. I'm not surprised. They had officers at both locations. Before the officers left, they basically made me confess to a lie. They told me that if I didn't confess that I stole the items from the home, I was going to jail with burglary and breaking and entering and something else. I can't remember what all they were threatening to charge me with. At the time, I was not aware of a lot of my rights and didn't have the courage to stand up to them, so I basically said, okay, sure, I did it. Oh, dude, I feel for you. I mean, I know what that's like to get bullied into a corner, but holy crap. This is really offensive on a whole other level. And then they told me I can't be doing that and asked why I would, and a bunch of other lectures were given. You have to just imagine, what kind of insecure limp dick prick is going to go out and be like, oh, well, you have to confess to this. We know you didn't do it, but if you confess to this, then we're not going to charge you with all this other crap. Oh, you confessed. Okay, well, let me tell you, son, stealing is wrong. And going into someone else's house and violating their property rights, that's wrong. From a guy who does that for a living. I had no choice but to lie about fessing up to something I didn't do or go to jail, so I took the easy way out. To me, that's wrong. No, not necessarily, dude. I mean, if you're being threatened, you've got a gun to your head, because that's what that is. Threatening to take you to jail is a gun to your head. And, if you got to lie, was it the easy way out? Well, it's not that the easy way out is always the wrong way out, so please don't get, so hard on yourself on that. To me, that's wrong. Also, there is a sheriff deputies that have been wrongfully attacking and abusing harmless citizens for no reason. Well, yeah, that's what the police do. This community is being terrorized by our legal system, and I've never known much about activism, but my question is, how can me and my friends stand up to this without being a victim? We certainly don't want to be a victim to their abuse and terrorizing this community. Can you help give us some insight on what we can and should do, Jeremy? Jeremy, well, I'm honored that you would turn to me for this kind of advice, and I hope that what I'm going to tell you is of value, not just to you, but to your entire community, to your friends, to your family, to other people who are suffering under this threat. Because I understand that in the bigger picture, the governance that we experience is a product of the paradigm. The way people think determines, what they will be subject to as victims of government. And in your town, it sounds like you do have, you have two problems. One is genuinely in the attitude of the people. If they are re-electing your jailer, a prison guard who has been prosecuted for harassing inmates, then you've got a problem in the general voting public wanting this, supporting this, tolerating this, and that has to be addressed. And so, in a sense, there's the public outrage campaign. But then on a second level, there is, I understand that in some communities, you do get clusters of bad officers. You do get departments that are out of control. You do get, what is really a gang of thugs harassing a community, taking over, and just threatening people left and right, exploiting them, ripping them off, doing crazy shit like this. Now, I by the way, I have to point out to your friend's mom here that that someone broke into her home, stole shoes and a wallet. That's a significant loss. I understand. Major pain in the ass, loss of money, loss of value, sure. If you turn to the police after that happens, you're freaking nuts. Seriously. No offense to your friend's mom, but she obviously needs some help herself in education and understanding that the police don't solve crimes. What do? They show up afterwards and write a report. And if they do anything else, it's going to be like your story, bullying someone into a false confession. It's going to be, chasing someone down that when they know they're innocent. It's going to be the bullying of the police state. So what do you do about this? I mean, you've got, in a sense, two different problems here. One, the gang of thugs that is doing this kind of harassment that is beyond the will of the people. Then you've got the fact that the will of the people is we want cops. We want our rights to be violated in order to protect our rights. I mean, that's the premise of government protection. So there are kind of, in a sense now, three things that you can do about this, right? Categorically, in terms of your activism. One is addressing the gang of thugs themselves, getting bad cops fired, demanding accountability, going to your city council or the county council, or if it's, county sheriffs, talking about to the elected sheriff, engaging at that political level. There's a lot that you can do in that. You can, and it depends on your exact environment. It depends on if the cops who are a problem are city cops. You mentioned that there were sheriff's deputies involved, so obviously there's at the county level. And there is a lot that you can do. And some would say that because, I don't believe in violence, that you shouldn't engage with the violent system. That's not true at all. If you can engage with the violent system and convince it to be less violent, basically, then you're improving the lives of people in your community. That is awesome work, wholly worthwhile. Get the worst police off the force. If you're lucky, you can get some accountability for them instead of, them getting paid vacations or whatever other, goodies that they get out of this. And it's important for people to know that when that happens, when a cop does something bad and then gets, suspended with pay, it's a paid vacation. You get paid to sit around while other people go through documents and investigate something that may have happened. And the cops that do that, are now the worst kind of welfare queens. I mean, they are living off the taxpayer. You are paying for this. When they screw up, and this is something that people in the community should know, and that I think the county council or the city council or whoever it is that the elected leadership at those levels should know, that this is a serious liability, and it makes their job more difficult if something were to happen. When you have cops out of control like this, it's really easy to have lawsuits that are going to bankrupt a city or a council. But the thing is, they're just going to issue more bonds or borrow more money, and the taxpayers are going to get ripped off to pay for that liability. So that liability is a liability for the taxpayers. There's a lot that you can do in this venue, again, in terms of actually fighting back, but you got to do the research. You got to get engaged at the local level. You got to understand what's going on. So the second thing is changing the paradigm, waking people up. And a lot of this is about the public accountability for the police. And this is something that you could have done when the police came to your home. And I understand it's intimidating. They show up with guns and they're flashing lights in your living room. They're practically breaking and entering into your home in order to harass you. And I understand that you're probably going through some legal challenges with this. But if you had a recording of the police, and this is where simply having a phone set up that's ready to record in your pocket can do a lot of good. You could have recorded them, got them on record saying, hey, we know you didn't do this, but you need to confess so that we don't charge you with all this other stuff. And police aren't supposed to do that. But it should be pointed out that the Supreme Court has already made it clear police have no obligation under any circumstances to tell you the truth when they are in uniform and you are not. That's right. They can lie with legal immunity. There is no protection for the American citizen against being lied to by American law enforcement. Pretty sick. That's the reality we're living in. So this goes into sort of cop blocking. And cop blocking sort of straddles both what I'm describing as the first thing you can do in fighting back politically and the second thing you can do in changing the paradigm. But it's also a very practical thing in terms of reducing the violence of government if you include just going around patrolling the patrollers, policing the police, going around and filming them, passing out cop block material, making sure that people know that when they're stopped by the police, all they have to say is, am I being detained? Am I free to go? And they can walk away unless that police officer can come up with some kind of probable cause. All of these various techniques are really important if you care about the police not coming after you, because if police are in a community where everybody just bends over for the cops and just submits and does whatever they say, then they're going to go to you as just the average citizen and assume that you're going to be the same way. But if everybody in your community knows what's up, if everybody in your community knows how to talk to cops, if everybody there is ready to record cops, if everybody there says, oh, excuse me, officer, hey, you know what, before I talk to you, let me get my phone. I'm just going to record this for my records and for both of our safety. Okay. All right. Now we can talk. All right. What's on your mind, officer? Really simple, just knowing how to use this incredibly powerful device that we all have in our pockets now. If you have it set up to stream, I have Ustream on mine, although Bamboozer, we found out yesterday, is another good alternative. So, but even just recording, just having the recording capability on your phone and being able to use it and having the confidence to use it at important times is really good. So anything you can do to get your community more aware of this, to spread this information, to get them to do their research on their constitutional rights. And yes, there are no such thing as constitutional rights. There are only natural human rights. But there are certain rights that the government has pretended to respect in order to get people to accept its other destructive policies. So you can use those, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, Fourth Amendment protection of privacy from illegal search and seizure, things like that. Very, very important. And getting people to apply that in your community can go a long way. So the third thing, or the third general category, is in changing the paradigm and making sure that people in your community understand what the police are and raising that awareness. So being able to protect yourself is one thing. Being able to change the paradigm, being able to fight back, being able to protect yourself from the police. There's a lot of stuff you can do. But in your situation, just there are so many ways that you can fight back against this and really put the cops in their place. But it's going to take all of these strategies. All of these tactics need to be applied. If you just go with the political solution and the people haven't changed their minds, and a politician goes, screw you, I've got corrupt cops on the force. I don't care. They make my job easier. They bring in more money for government, and the general public isn't paying attention. I'm still going to get reelected. Piss off. You're not going to, you're not going to do any good. If you solve the political solution, but cops are still able to run roughshod over citizens, then you might then you're just going to have more good-ish. There's no such thing as a good cop because they're all protecting all the bad cops. But you're going to have relatively good cops. And by the way, the most good cops get forced out of the system. It's engineered that way. They'll just turn into more bad cops. And if you do all of this, if you achieve those things, and if you change the paradigm, but you don't have that manifest, then people are just going to be more pissed off, and there's going to be a greater separation between the police and the people. So I hope that helps. I hope that's given you plenty of food for thought. And I wish you the best of luck with your legal case. I hope you'll write back with an update soon.
This is your last warning.
That would have been the end of it. And that would have been justice for Kelly Thomas, who might be alive today.
Facts up.